It's hard to believe that it's only been a year since the last round of speculation came to a close. Between 58 different characters, the latest edition of Smash covered a wide swath of Nintendo's history, from its classic franchises to its up-and-coming modern games, with a cast that stands out amongst each other impressively well for its size. This roster brought something else with it though, something that is unfortunately becoming very predictable: a whole lot of salt. Vocal, negative reactions were the norm since the final DLC characters were announced in December 2015. Fans lashed out with vivid emotion, condemning the selections and throwing out accusations of bias. The backlash has even created longing for the roster of the previous entry, Super Smash Bros. Brawl, a game that rarely saw much nostalgia from the fan base before then. It's not the first time this has happened, and it won't be the last. To begin with, a quintessential and undeniable fact: the roster of a brand new Super Smash Bros. Game will always feel like it sucks. As we've seen a few times now, the release of a new Smash game and the reveal of its final roster brings a lot of feelings to the forefront. There's the excitement of finally having it in our hands and getting to experience it for ourselves, especially present for anyone whose favorite or most wanted characters got to join the fight. There's a sense of relief as well, as character speculation finally ends and the stress therein leaves, a calm after the storm. But there can also be disappointment to the fans whose favorites missed out, a feeling that the game isn't as good as it could have been. Some fans are unable to handle the disappointment, which leads to the salty comments we hear about so much. But it's worth noting that the reasoning, that being how questionable the new roster additions were, is not a new thing. It's happened before. Sure, the reactions to the fourth game's roster were more vocal and pronounced for various reasons, the Smash ballots being the greatest, but the truth is, Brawl's release was strikingly similar. For its first few months, and even for a while before its release due to its final roster being leaked beforehand, yes, just like the infamous ESRB leak, salty comments were everywhere. Fans attacked the 38 character roster for being smaller than they expected, the clone characters feeling undeserving, accusing the Subspace Emissary of hogging development time that could have been spent elsewhere, and even directing their ire towards the director himself, Masahiro Sakurai. There are a few parallels. People were angry over characters, the final roster, and minor gimmicks. The common complaints about Brawl were the small roster, several clones, and the overly robust story mode. Fast forward to then 2015, and the complaints are about other things, but they're there nonetheless. Now, before we get into this, we should reiterate that it's okay to be disappointed. It's okay to question some of the creative decisions that went into a game, that there's a line, and so many reactions, past and present, cross it. A little constructive criticism is always a good thing, but there's a difference between critiquing something and bashing it for not catering to one's individual wishes. It's egotistical and immature, and reflects poorly on the community as a whole. The actions of few paint a negative image of many. When people talk about when the Smash community reaches a low point, it was during the Smash Ballad. Yeah, that's sort of true, but this has all happened before if you're noticing a trend here. Characters who soon to be shoo-ins missed out, and some of their fans feel cheated. Less expected characters find their way in, to be branded less deserving for not being who the vocal minority preferred at the time. Veteran characters who were hated when they were first revealed in the previous installment are suddenly put on pedestals and given special status solely for being in a Smash game once before. Now tell us, am I talking about the fourth game or Brawl? You can't tell, can you? And in the case of Brawl, if its roster really was as perfect as a nostalgic minority is starting to claim, why was it so controversial from the beginning? Now, we've been going on for a while about how similar the reactions have been, but there is a key detail that is quite different in the case of the two games. Now, let's get into a term that I'm sure some people have waking nightmares over: reps. Many a discussion happens over how many characters are present on the Smash roster from each franchise, and their quote-unquote representation is treated as a measuring stick to compare to other franchises one might not be as interested in. There are some constant cries of some series being over-repped, and that others deserve more reps. Yeah, Sakurai does pay attention to such things, but he doesn't restrict himself with them. He'll add a character that over-reps a franchise if he thinks the character is worth adding, and he won't shoehorn in a character just to even out a series representation compared to the others. But many fans still treat the situation as more simplistic than it actually is. acting like any decision that doesn't match up with the one they would make is a personal slight against them. In some respects, this is also true of the people who take Sakurai's word as gospel, as rules to follow, and try and enforce them. Then you have two sides arguing and that are completely wrong for two different reasons, and nobody wins from that. For Smash 3DS and Wii U, the assault was directed mainly to few characters and franchises that were accused of being overrepped. Kid Icarus in particular drew the most ire during the initial release, with two newcomers and many items, trophies, and enemy models brought over from Uprising. Sakurai was accused of blatant favoritism towards the franchise he personally revived. By the end of the game's DLC cycle, Fire Emblem would join it as a scapegoat, gaining 3 newcomers, none of them with the largest bandwagon going into the game, and 4 characters overall, each for a wildly different and unforeseeable reason. Fans of other slightly represented series such as Donkey Kong, Metroid, and Star Fox felt ignored, and took their anger out on whoever they saw fit. All of this happened after Brawl's release as well, but several franchises were flipped in opposite situations. The lack of a Mario newcomer and the absence of Dr. Mario rubbed fans the wrong way. Other fans were annoyed that the only new Zelda character was Toon Link, deeming him undeserving and claiming the roster would have been better off without him. Sakurai was himself accused of bias, again, but toward Kirby instead, as then newcomers Meta Knight and King Dedede became scapegoats for those who couldn't stand that their favorites fell short of the cut. Now, people who followed us already know who this is, but one character in particular saw the most hatred, resentment, and salt of any of them. Now, take a guess as to who it was. Yes. Anyone who wasn't there at the time may find it hard to believe, but Wolf, the so-called shoo-in for 3DS and Wii U DLC, was despised for months after his reveal for Brawl. Many fans couldn't believe that a second Star Fox clone would get in over so many other characters they were hoping for. Even within his own series, yeah, he had support, but it couldn't compare to the telepath Crystal, who was actually considered for her greater moveset potential. Months and years passed. The fanbase grows used to Wolf being there. He gains a few fans, and then when a Smash game is announced, he's vehemently defended as any other veteran. And then when it turns out he isn't coming back, the fans react with as much salt over his exclusion as they did towards his inclusion years before. The fans are different, some may not carry over between games, but the same effect still applies. It should be pointed out that Star Fox as a series was fairly active during Brawl's release, yet it was maligned and called over-repped for having 3 characters. Then it goes inactive for several years leading up to the 4th game, falls to 2 characters since the inactivity makes it a lower priority, and now it's under-repped despite having no releases in that entire span aside from the Star Fox 64 remake, and the latest game in the series, Star Fox Zero, doesn't come out until after the DLC period ends. I'm lost, honestly. Now, there is one big takeaway from this. Much of the Smash fanbase is very opinionated, very dead set on their opinions, and has trouble coming to terms with any outcome other than the one they want most. Many of the fans are also resistant to change, idolizing some characters solely for being in a previous Smash game and ignoring the situation surrounding them at the current time. A spot on the roster is a grand and venerated position, and the more vocal supporters can and will tarnish any character they feel doesn't deserve the honor, only to praise him with the rest of the veterans years later. It's a vicious cycle, one that likely won't ever stop. We will get a new Smash for the Switch. It's only a matter of time, and we might be seeing one soon if the rumors hold true. With it will come more discussion, arguments, and salt. The best we can do in that case is take a look at the past, understand how and why these things happen, and to try and use that knowledge to handle the emotional roller coaster that is Smash speculation better than the last time. Relatively at least. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoy articles remade as videos, tell us which one you would like to see next. Likewise, if you enjoy our content, follow us on social media and consider supporting us via Patreon. Have a good day and take care. Also, yes, I fixed my audio.